For more on the president's visit, I spoke to David Anderson. He's a professor of African history and politics at the University of Warwick, and I asked him what Kenya expects from Obama's visit.
Well, the White House is, I think, concerned about the trip in several respects. I'm not sure all of Obama's advisors were keen for him to go. Kenya has security challenges, and certainly organizing logistics of this trip has been a challenge. But I think they realized the president was bound to go, and they had to do it. So the benefits they're looking for are increased security liaison and support with Kenya, because that's the critical issue. But also, I think they'd like to see some benefits in terms of Kenya's acknowledgement of some of its human rights issues and some of its democracy deficits that are quite profound and I think quite troubling to the American government.
Yeah, there has been a lot made about China's investment and foray into Africa. Obviously, a lot of people compare that to what Washington is or isn't doing. And I'm curious from you, are we making too much of it, or what do you think of this?
I think it's a critical issue. And I was in Nairobi just a few weeks ago, and you just need to drive around the streets and you'll see Chinese investment, Chinese businesses on every street corner. It's profoundly obvious that China has made a huge impact in a country like Kenya and all over Africa. But you know what? I don't think the White House cares too much about this. This is seen as a good thing. Investment in Africa is good wherever it comes from. And if Chinese investors have the capacity to do so and do so in a positive, productive way, hey, that can benefit everyone. And I genuinely don't think that this regime in the White House feels that that's a bad thing. If you were to get a more conservative American government, they might take a different and less progressive view. But this administration doesn't see Chinese investment as a problem.
The entrepreneurial summit over the weekend, we talked about it just very briefly here, but how significant is that for, I guess, the president and but more widely, I guess, for the U.S. government to promote entrepreneurship in Africa?
Well, I think the Entrepreneur Summit actually, in this case, is a very useful, convenient device. It was a summit being held in Nairobi anyway. It allowed the president to have a good reason to visit that was positive and progressive. And I think he seized upon that opportunity. So in many ways, it's merely a flag of convenience. But it does allow Obama to make statements about what he wants to see in Kenya, which is a greater freedom for entrepreneurial activity, a less corrupt and less repressive state, a less securitized state, a state that respects human rights more and that recognizes human dignity. And I can assure you that whatever is said in public, behind closed doors, Obama will be giving quite a tough message to Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta, and I hope that Mr. Kenyatta is listening.
Is there any risk to the countries that are welcoming, whether it's U.S. money or Chinese money or European money? Is that something they generally welcome, or they don't think about that and simply it's just needed money for infrastructure projects?
Well, in Kenya's case, Kenya has never been a country that was dependent on aid. Kenya's never had more than 6 or 7% of its GDP been aid responsive. So for the Kenyans, aid doesn't matter that much. But you know what? In some sectors, it adds a huge difference. So Kenya's defense budget is currently matched, and more than matched, by US security assistance. So in certain sectors, external assistance makes an enormous difference, just as Chinese development assistance has been very significant in many infrastructural problems and been solving them, not just in Kenya, but in Ethiopia and other African countries also. And the president's going from Nairobi, of course, to Addis Ababa, where he will not only meet with the Ethiopian leadership, but he will address the Africa Union summit there.
If you were to listen to the voices of the leaders in Africa, what would they want Washington to do or not to do?
Well, I think to talk about the voices in Africa, they would be very discordant. They'd have very different things to say. For the Kenyans, who are very pro-West, pro-American, they really want a close, almost umbilical relationship with the US. They want full-blooded support from Obama. Ethiopia, very different. Ethiopia doesn't like anyone telling it what to do and doesn't want partners that are too cozy with it. Ethiopians are very independent and they value that enormously. So I don't think the question can be asked on an African basis. I think you have to look at individual countries and what their own foreign policies and their diplomacies dictate.